Greetings, 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 greetings. I'm King Clifford Jefferson, a senator of God for the fifth kind of man Jew, son of folk ruler of Jerusalem. I'm the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful, which we know as King Edgar the Peaceful, or the Vicar of Christ, or Melchizedek, meaning the King of Peace. It is October 28th, 2025, which is equivalent to the Rebbe year 2975. I greet you in the name of all the heirs, successors, predecessors, all those who are all trying to get understanding what we are here and called to do. In a second. Thank you all for joining me here today. I apologize for the difficulties I've been having with my uh, computer. I'm getting a new one, so don't worry about that. That will be taken care of. Nonetheless, the initiative must go on. This is part 3, the English Empire in the Continental America, from part 1 and part 2. Yeah, let's get started with the lecture. We're going to go back to the video with Lord Lansing. Okay.
Abbeys. So you have Westminster Abbey. This is next to Parliament, which is a part of Parliament where they keep all of his children. And they again will be part of everything royal that is going to take place. That's why it's so important. I'm going to read the issue. I hope everyone can see. It says, issue. The petition is for the Treasury to provide to everyone a sovereign grant from the reserve fund to our families of those who are born in parts beyond sea for all their living and other expenses. We, the father, the Webb family, and the extended family of the House of Lancelot, Lord Lancelot at Sheemward, Sutton Borough of London, of those who are born in parts beyond sea, the Windward generation of the Commonwealth realm, are all subject to the Crown colonies and fundamental law of the realm of England and Wales. The Windward generation of the Commonwealth realm has been refused their rights to aboard in the United Kingdom with indifference, which is against human rights and equality. This petition will help save children, adults, and elderly from discrimination, torture, suffering, and death by wrongful administration. In a period of change in economic environment and insecurity, new trade and economic patterns, unprecedented threats to family peace and security, and a surge in popular demand for democracy, human rights, and broadened economic opportunity, the potential of and the need for the House of Lancelot, a compelling force for good and as a effective network for cooperation and for promoting development has never been greater, recalling that the House of Lancelot is a charitable, cultural, education, and religious society of the family institution and equal family sovereign states, consulting and cooperating in the common interest of our family and in the promotion of family understanding and family world peace, and influencing family international society to the benefit of all through the research of common principle and value. The family of the world, through the fidelity of their community, have made a remarkable contribution to the aisles of society for generations. In the course of administrating the affairs of the House of Lancelot, made the decision to secure the Windrush generation, Commonwealth realms, families, histories, and laws. We, the father, the Webb family, and the extended family of the Constitution of the House of Lancelot urge you to sign this petition to protect those who are born in parts beyond sea, inheritable rights, and equality, thus preserving our historical rights for future generations. Confirmation, a statue for those who are born in parts beyond sea of the 25th year of King Edward III. Statue the first. This is what it states. The king's children declared inheritable in England, wheresoever
What you
born.
say, King Edward
The
III?
law of the crown of England is the House of Lancelot, a compelling force for good and as a effective network for cooperation and for promoting development has never been greater, recalling that the House of Lancelot is a charitable, cultural, education, and religious society of the family institution and equal family sovereign states, consulting and cooperating in the common interest of our family and in the promotion of family understanding and family world peace, and influencing family international society to the benefit of all through the research of common principle and value. The family of the world, through the fidelity of their community, have made a remarkable contribution to the aisles of society for generations. In the course of administrating the affairs of the House of Lancelot, made the decision to secure the Windrush generation, Commonwealth realms, families, histories, and laws. We, the father, the Webb family, and the extended family of the Constitution of the House of Lancelot urge you to sign this petition to protect those who are born in parts beyond sea, inheritable rights, and equality, thus preserving our historical rights for future generations. Confirmation, a statue for those who are born in parts beyond sea of the 25th year of King Edward III.
Wow. Okay.
Statue the
There you
first.
go.
This is what it states. The king's.
Okay. So he's using the king's statue, okay, under Edward III, okay? King statue under Edward III. Very important we understand that. This is called De Natus Ultramarine. De Natus Ultramarine. Let's look at it real quick. Okay. We went through this yesterday. By the way, either tonight or tomorrow, I'm going to do a lecture on the ancient Canaanites, all right, which we know today are the so-called children of Israel or the tribe or the children of Judah or the kingdom from the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel, all right, which are all denotes to uh, the ancient Canaanites, all right, which were under a unified monarchy, all right, and I'm going to prove that these are in fact the children of the Plantagenet dynasty, okay. I'm going to prove that tomorrow. I'm going to take it all the way back to the land of Canaan and bring it all the way up throughout time immemorial, do what we call the first crusades, while they established the Holy Sepulchre, and all that. We're gonna take all the way back to the last crusades. Okay, the last crusade, going back to the origin of the people who were assumed to be guaranteed or inherited a promised land. Okay, very important. That's going to be a beautiful lesson. That revelation didn't come till yesterday. All right, didn't come till yesterday. All right. So, and I'm gonna use Brother King Yahweh as an example. Brother comes from out of Georgia. He claims to be a king. Everybody uses words loosely. All right, but the language that they use do not denote to a king. All right, so very important to understand how important this lesson that I'm speaking to today in reference to the lesson I'm going to do either tonight or tomorrow on regard to the ancient Canaanites, who are the Plantagenet descendants. Okay, well, he inserted this statutory a statutory language that of a law passed by an act of parliament. Okay, going back all the way to the Plantagenet crown. He's not from the Plantagenet crown, brothers and sisters. There's nothing in his certificate of incorporation, which I don't see. I see a website. Okay, I see a website with him posting this information, but there's nothing in regards to the corporate powers, in regard to the corporate body under the corporate personhood as yourself calling yourself a king, all right? Descendants of the ancient Plantagenet crowd in regards to those born abroad. So you mean to tell me that you as a king are in a position or the tenure to protect those abroad and now what we call North America, okay? So the thing you have to show for that is a website, okay? And you showing up, standing in the halls of Parliament, okay? I don't see you in Parliament. If you were, I don't think that will make any validity to that effect of what you're trying to accomplish, because I already established that in regards to claiming land, that comes to reversion or remandment to conditions subsequent, which is a right of an entry, which cannot be done by um, uh, just talking on platforms. You have to actually file a lawsuit. Okay, so de notis otra is known as the statute of the Children Born Abroad Act of 1350, which he mentions. Okay, all right, and he somehow inserted it on some information put forth on his website. All right, and he said it was an English statute during the reign of Edward III. The people over there are not English. He's not claiming to be English. I have not once heard him say he was a. He said he was the king of England, but I don't think his ancestry denotes to those who are English. Okay, very important because he goes back to the Windrush generation, which are not English descendants. Okay, it said it regulated rights to those born overseas and was an early precursor of British nationality law and others. Dated from 1351 during the early parts of what everyone said the Hundred-Year War. The Hundred-Year War was in the 15th century. Okay, the Hundred-Year War was in the 15th century as regards to Edward III, the son of Edward II, the son of Edward I, the son of Henry III. Okay, very important for us to understand that. Only sale of family crest you see here is those who are the armor roll barons of the Plantagenet kings. Okay, very important. Let's see. It addressed the issue of inheritance by foreign-born children, a topical problem. Okay, everyone claims to be inheritance of the kings of England, but don't realize that the kings of England and Plantagenet crown, the same crest you see right here. Okay. You can see here. Let me get it better. took away a lot of my files because I think it typing in my computer. Where that stuff is up here. You see here a map of the English Empire in the continent of America. So how could you claim to be the king of England when the English Empire is within the continent of America in the present day? Okay, this is right here outside the Chancery Wall where I'm filing the complaint on behalf of the English heir as the king of England. It's going to be one king. Okay, all right, and the king of England is not the king of the United Kingdom. Okay, different corporate body of power, different corporate body of people, and different corporate body of person head. Which at this time, King Charles is the king. All right, very important. Let's go back. John Baptiste Ultramarine. The statute of the 23rd of Edward III was invoked over 200 years later in two matters. In the first of those, it did not prove effective, since the outcome went in the other direction. But in the second, it was significant. And the debate of the succession of Elizabeth I. Okay, all the Elizabeth I, as well as Henry VIII, James I, all these were claimed up based upon the divine right of kings. Okay, this is how their succession to the crown of England came about, claiming to have a divine right of king as established by God. Okay, which is not the case for us. Our divine right of kings came by way of predecessors, by way of primogeniture. Okay, it continues to say that it was thought by some to be a telling against the claimants of the house of Stuart, meaning that this statute uh, 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 created a question of or a presumption of the legality of the franchise that the House of Stuart were holding, as well as the franchise that Elizabeth I and their particular house were holding in regards to the preservation of the inheritance of the birthright or instead of inheritance of the base birthright of those who were descendants of the Plantagenet crown under King Edward III. Okay, very important. We know this also has to do with citizenship. Okay, because it says that in the Calvin's case, we know Calvin's case was the case dealing with British subjects over here in North America. Okay, once again, British subjects who are over here in North America. The United States then, or the founding fathers' citizenship came by way of the Naturalization Act of 1790. We can go to the United States versus Juan Kimmel Art, which I'm going to go to in a second. We can go to Imre Ahmad Hassan. That case deals with the test of proving the citizenship in the meaning of the eyes of the founding fathers versus the original way of proving one's affiliation with a society based upon the first test, genealogy or ethnicity, then the second test, a color of skin, which in that case, they said that the Anglo-Saxons were dark-skinned. And if you go to the United States versus King Doe, it clearly points out in that case that the Anglo-Saxons were in fact the American citizens, for those who don't know that. It was also brought into argument against the proposed right of inheritance in England of the Scottish post-Synod, those born after the Union of the Crown of 1603. So this is the time when the England, Scotland, even though they were separate realms and separate crowns, they were not unified until 1707. Very, very, very important. We ain't got to even get into the text because he's about to go into it right now. Let's go back to the interview with Lord Lancelot.
Children declared inheritable in England wheresoever born. The law of the Crown of England is, and always have been such, that the children of the kings of England, in wheresoever parts they be born, in England or elsewhere, be able and ought to bear the inheritance after the death of their ancestors, which law our Lord the King, the prelates, the earls, the barons, and other great men, and all the commons assembled in this parliament do approve and affirm forever, right?
Okay,
Forever.
stop. So he had to sign a petition to have these rights preserved when it should have been a law already in place, though silent, all right, based upon the corporate body and the corporate personhood who created that law to protect your rights based upon an inheritance or a promise of an inheritance. So these people have been studying my channel, apparently. Okay. They've been apparently studying my channel and cut and pasting what it is in regards to their so-called legal presumption of legitimacy, which I can prove is in fact illegitimate. Okay, why do I say that? We can go right here to New Jersey, right here, and New Jersey Provincial Council, and see where the crown is. Let's see where the crown actually is, or where it actually set. Let's see. So, if you representing the King of England in present day, all right, in 2025, His Majesty's Council was, according to what we're reading here, was right over here in New Jersey. Because remember, Parliament was an itinerant court. It was a moving government. It wasn't stationary. Okay. It was a moving government. That's why when you have temporary provisionary government, it's based upon moving the government in case of enemy attack or war, etc. So we see here His Majesty's Council for the province of New Jersey, and we know when we go back to the map, the English Empire was within the continent of New Jersey. Okay, and the crown or the seat of authority was right here in New Jersey. Okay, it was called New Largely. Okay, before Great Britain unified or United Kingdom unification largely was already in place with a part of what we call Channel Island. So they reclassified these names, not knowing that these are all part of what we call the Plantagenet Rim. It was under the Angevin crown, which bears the three family crests, okay? The three lions on their crest, before you even get the three fleur de lis. So the history of the Provincial Council was established in 1702 upon surrender of those profiteers, all right, who were what we call tenants in chief, based upon the authority of the grant given from what we call Lord Paramount. That was the crown, okay, or the king. It says that the right of government of Queen Anne, a de facto king nonetheless, and government united the two colonies as the province of New Jersey as a royal colony, established a new system of government, a new legal framework under the authority of the crown. What term? It was indefinite. Okay, the authority of the crown we see here is indefinite. All right, we must understand that. All right. Also, all right, where else can I go? If the crown was right here in New Jersey, and we go to the history of the crown, Let's look at what it says. The crown. And each so in each Commonwealth rim, the term the crown at its broadest means the government or the polity known as the state. You hear that? Known as the state. While the sovereign in all rims is the living embodiment of the state. You hear that? While the sovereign in all rims is the living embodiment of the state or symbolic personification of the crown. The body of the reigning sovereign thus holds two distinct personal and constant coexistence. An ancient theory, this is called what? The king's two bodies. The body natural, subject to infirmities and death, and the body politic, which never die. The crown and the sovereign are conceptually divisible, but legally indivisible. Okay, this is called legal personality. So we know that the crown was written in New Jersey, as we see here under the Provincial Council, and is indefinite. Then the only thing missing from that picture is the personification of the monarch, i.e., the king. Okay, very important to understand that. In order for that, uh, without that personification, there would be no such thing as crown land. Okay, and we know that crown is right here in New Jersey, and it was indefinite. So only way that indefinite crown right here in New Jersey, outside of what they calling themselves over in the United Kingdom, there must be a legal fiction created to create a bridge between the literal text of the law without breaking the letter of the law, filling that gap in the legislation, filling that gap in the law because of the history is complete. It's not a lie, it's not fraud, it's not deceit, it's only uh, um, there, as I said, to fill that gap in the history that's missing. Okay, very important. That's why we come here, Crown Land. This is why when I do the lesson on the ancient Canaanites, okay, you better be there for that one. All right, let's go to Crown Land. Crown Land, also known as the Royal Domain, is a territory area belonging to the monarch. You hear that? Who personifies the crown. It is the equivalent of a entail estate and passive with the monarchy being inseparable from it. Very, very, very important in regards to your claim to be the king. All right. You must be dealing with an entail estate. You can't be making these claims. You have to know what you're talking about. So that takes it to what we call the feasible estate. What is the feasible estate? Let's talk about it. No matter what land you're on, the interest that the people have in it in regards to not knowing who the owner is, which apparently is the king, it is in fact defeasible. Let's look at it. This is why the uh, one on the ancient Canaanites, you cannot miss that one. A defeasible estate is created when a grantor, the owner, transfer land conditionally, meaning that there's terms and conditions. It's the note to an easement, okay, an encumbrance, all right. It said upon the happening of the event or condition stated by the grantor, the transfer may void or lease subject to annulment, and the estate not subject to such condition, which is called an indefeasible estate, meaning that a clear chain of title. So an indivisible versus indivisible state, meaning that one is a clear chain of title, the other is not. One you can prove who the owner is, and the one is not. If you know who the owner is, and you're the grantee or the heir, you ain't got to worry about going to court because the court is not needed because you can go right to the owner. All right. When you don't know the owner of it, this is the purpose and intent of our court, and we know that in dealing with defeasible estates, especially in this day and time, without knowing who the owner is, because the United States or the states of any state within the United States only have a right in what we call fee simple absolute property, which result from the eminent domain power, which result from the police powers, which originated from, if you talk about the United States, Article 10, there's so-called sovereign powers, which is that reserved for the states or the people. And we know when we go to the state constitution, on Article 1, Section 2, and all the way up to 18, there is no state because the government not even created, and therefore they have no right to a defeasible estate, fee simple, in lieu of what we call the donors condition of us, which was a law protecting an estate intel because it was personified by the king called crown land. Okay? Can't be separated. All right. Historically, common law has frowned on the use of what everyone read it, the feasible estate, as it interferes with the owners, i.e., the king, enjoyment of their property, and as such has made it difficult to create a valid future interest, condition subsequent, right of entry. Okay, very important because the purpose of the king is to convey the land to you because you are in fact is the heirs. So that takes us to condition subsequent. Fee simple subject to condition subsequent. A fee simple subject to condition subsequent is created when the words of a grant support the conclusion that the grantor intends to convey fee simple absolute or has attached a condition to the grant so that if a specific future event happens, the grantor will get his fee simple absolute back. This is talking about the ancient Canaanites in regards to the promised land that they will inherit at a point in time. They have not inherited yet. They don't know what land that the promised land that they were supposed to inherit because there is no king. Okay? Deuteronomy 17:14. All right, which we're gonna get into when I do that lesson. Thus, if these symbols subject to conditions subsequent does not end automatically upon the happening of the condition, the future interest is called a right of re-entry or right of entry, and probably only reverts to the original grantor if he exiles the right. So the Palestinians and the so-called Israelites, who are the so-called people who claim to be the descendants of the ancient kingdom of Judah and the ancient kingdom of Israel, which goes back to those who are descendants of the ancient Canaanite, based upon the promise, which the promise was not promised for that inheritance that they're talking about over there. All right. Very important for you to understand that because law was already put in place that you didn't need to go to war because you can go to court and deal with that problem, which I'll go into when I do my next lesson. Okay? Very, very, very important. The right of entry is not automatic, but rather must be exercised to terminate the fee simple subject to conditions subsequent. To exercise this right of entry, the holder must take substantial steps to recover possession of title in this day and time, not going back to how they're doing it in this day and time over there in what we call Israel and Palestine and what we call the territory known as what we call the Levant, okay, called Jerusalem, which is where all the war took place in the so-called Holy Land, okay, or presumed to be the Holy Land. I'm thinking, or I'm based upon my research, is telling you that that is not the fact, the Holy Land in the present day, okay? All right, so very important. In order to re-enter based upon conditions subsequent, based upon a feasible estate, which was based upon the conditions set forth by the grantor, which in fact would be the king. In lieu of this argument, you must file a lawsuit. When you read the scriptures, Jesus is not there out there throwing grenades and bombs, etc. He's in the courtroom arguing with the doctors of the law. Okay, very, very, very important. Let's go United versus one Kimar. We already know that the crown was right here in New Jersey. Not over in what you call UK, Brother Lord Lancelot. It's a United States versus one Kim Art, 1898 case. The framers of the Constitution were familiar with the distinction between the Roman law and feudal law. Between for that dog. Sorry about that. This here. The framers of the Constitution were familiar with the distinction between Roman law and feudal law, between obligations based on territoriality and those based on personal and visible character of origin. Fiction. You hear that? Invisible character of origin. They're talking about fictions. They're talking about fictions and legal fiction. A fiction is just based upon the belief, which is for the sake of a legal claim, cannot be raised in a court of law. A legal fiction, on the other hand, can be raised in lieu of an argument based upon a fiction that goes back to a time era where there's a gap in the history, there's a gap in the legislation, there's a gap in the law, and there needs to be a bridge created to the literal text of the law without breaching the letter of the law. Legal fictions are created for that distinct purposes. So the framers of the Constitution were familiar with the distinction between the Roman law and feudal law, between obligation based on territoriality, territoriality, territoriality. So let me slow down. Obligation based on territoriality and those based on the personal and invisible character of origin. There's nothing to show that in the manner of nationality, hear that nationhood, they intended to adhere to the principles derived from the legal government, which they had just assisted in overthrowing. Okay? Very, very important, that term overthrowing. We all know what that means. Manifestly, when the sovereignty of the crown, which was right here in New Jersey, the crown of England, all right, within the English Empire, all right, within the continent of New Jersey, which we know was right here in New Jersey, presently, manifested when the sovereignty of that crown was thrown off by a different corporate person under a different corporate body with different corporate powers. They established every rule of the common law and every statute of England obtained in the colonies in derogation of the principles on which the new government was founded was what? Abrogated. Okay? They changed the law. Okay? They changed the law after they overthrew the crown. We know the crown is responsible for the land based upon the power of escheatment. The power of escheatment is the power of the crown to take for one of the owner, all right, or for one of his heir. If the heir is not there, then the land cannot be conveyed to the actual heir when he comes of age. Okay, this is due lottery of season. Okay, if he's not of age or if he's not conscious, then that means that it falls through inquisition most mortem. It goes back to the crown. This is why the Constitution of New Jersey is very important. Article 4, Section 7, paragraph Article 4, Section 7, paragraph 9.1 and 2. Once again, Article 4, Section 7, paragraph 9.1 and 2. Because he says that the legislature are not to create any law in regards to land use or land management, which is police power, the eminent domain power, in regards to any legal disabled minor at law because of any legal disability, nor changing the laws of descent. This is what they did when they instituted paragraph 20 of Article 1 of the Privileged Immunity Clause, which was already there before the government even took form. Okay? So we see that when they did that, they overthrew the crown. The crown is the position held by the tenure of the king who personifies it, incarnates it, incorporates it, whatever term you choose to see fit to use. The state, for all national purposes, embraced in the Constitution, became one, united under the same police sovereign authority and governed by the same laws, but they retained their jurisdiction over all persons and things. As I said, we were enslaved by legal fiction, turning people into property. Therefore, through a corporate personhood, which is legal fiction, that will be able to change property back into person as successors of an incorporated corporate body with corporate powers under corporate personhood based upon the 14th Amendment, which goes back to rights that are indissoluble, going back to the Otis, what was it called? De Ocha Maria, what's it called again? Majesty Law. De Natis Ocha Maria, if I'm saying it right. There ain't no truth ultramarine. Yes. Okay. So we see here the state, for all national purposes, embracing the Constitution, became one under the same sovereign authority and governed by the same laws, but they retained the jurisdiction over all persons and things. That means you and your property within their territorial limits, except which were surrendered to the general government or restrained by the Constitution. This is, in fact, the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution, and protection to life, liberty, and property rested primarily with them. This is the 14th Amendment. When they emancipated you, the rights and property based upon life and liberty was restored to you, okay? By Section 1 and Section 2 of the 14th Amendment put the tenures in place for the government based upon the legal framework established by the 14th Amendment, which is not even needed since the birthright citizenship is inseparable and indissoluble, going back to the De Otis Nayam De Notis Ultramayer. Okay, so it clearly says here, so far as the just communal or forthright related to the rights of persons, they took it for themselves. Colleagues regarded it as their birthright, and Dr. said part as it was found applicable to their condition. Something is definitely wrong with that, right? Because it said they were familiar with what? Not just English law, they were familiar with feudal law, as well as they were familiar with Roman law. We know that Roman law go back to Rome, and we know feudal law go back to William the Conqueror. Very, very, very important. Let's go back to the honorable baron. As I said yesterday, the lesson apparently it didn't copy, so I was talking for about 45 minutes or an hour, and it did not record. So I'm just filling in the gaps what was missed by the recording. Armor bearings. You don't see any armor bearing for brother Lord Lancelot. Okay. You know, Lancelot, is story goes back to the story of Arthur, which are considered fiction. Okay. Fiction. All right. They will not work in a court of law. Just like God is a fiction, Jesus is a fiction. It's based upon something that is uh, formed from one's belief. Not saying it ain't real from your understanding, but is it a fiction? For it to be considered a part of one's reality in day and time, it has to go along with the legal precepts that are already in place and without breaching the legal precepts that are already in place. We have done that. We have bridged we have created a bridge between the literal text of the law, going back in the time era that we're going to, dealing with these people who are considered to be fiction because these stories are over now, okay? But yet a record was kept. The record in law, if applicable, leads to some legal standing of a right of reversion of an inheritance based upon your claim of successorship in lieu of what we call a entail estate and not fee simple, okay? Very, very, very important. If you go to the House of Plantagens, before Edward III, the Plantagenet crowns, they bore the bearing of the Kingdom of England. The bearing of the Kingdom of England was 3 lions. Started with Godfrey the Plantagenet, son of folk, ruler of Jerusalem. When we get down to Richard Cornwell, this is Holland. When you see Holland, Holland represents the red lion, and the red lion you see right there on uh, uh, the map of the English Empire within the continent of North America. You see the lion, 3 lions. You see the 3 fleur-de-lis. You see the Irish. What was that? What's that called? A heart. Okay, and you see the red line of the Dutch. This represents the Netherlands or Holland or Dutch, all right, and they got a long history connected to the Anglo and Dutch War, okay? But nonetheless, Richard of Cornwall was the king of Germany and Rome. A Plantagenet king, a king of Germany and Rome. You see it right here. From the 13th century, king of Germany, formerly king of the Romans. This is the Plantagenet king, okay? A Plantagenet king. Father John, the one who signed the Magna Carta in Isabella, Countess of Aquitaine, okay? Very, very, very important. If I'm not mistaken, the House of Aquitaine is not French, but Spanish. Let me just check if you're on the same page. For the sake of argument, we can talk about that later. All right. So we see Richard of Cornwall, all right, Richard of Cornwall was king of the Romans as well as king of the Germans. We know that the founding fathers were aware of Roman law and feudal law as well as English law. Okay, so they had the work both. They had the best of both worlds. Let's see. Right. So this is from United States versus One Kim Art. We see that the founding fathers were familiar with our folk right. Okay, with our folk right. Let's go to Anglo-Saxon law. It should qualify. You won't hear none of these people identifying with King talking about this. Why? Because they're lying. Okay. Anglo-Saxon law, or in from William the Conqueror, will be called the Doomsday. All right, was the legal system of Anglo-Saxon England from the 6th century until the Norman conquest. All right, it was a form of Germanic law, or soon to be a form of Germanic law, based on an unwritten custom known as what everyone said, folk right, and unwritten law enacted by kings with the advice of their written or council. Very important for these Anglo-Saxons by their written or council. Let's go to 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica, which was created in Edinburgh, Scotland. It's by understanding the ancient Canaanites concerning the territory where they originate from, which is southern Levant, and the wars that are taking place now based upon our promised land, which is not even that land that they're on. It's not even the land that they're on. Okay, that's not the promised land. Okay, very important to understand that. That is not the promised land. A lot of people think that the Anglo-Saxons are white people. They're not white people. The Anglo-Saxons are dark, right? Very important. It said, in spite of historical foreign conquest, Phoenician, Greeks, Romans, Vandals, Arabs, and French, the Berber physical type and the Berber temperament and nationality have persisted since the Stone Age. So when we say in Stone Age, we're talking about the Stone Age, Iron Age, or however the ages go. We go all the way back that far, okay? That far, ancient Canaanite. The Norman debates have naturally introduced a certain amount of foreign blood among the tribes fringing the Mediterranean. But those farther inland have preserved their racial purity to a surprising degree. Though considerable individuals differ of difference of types may be found in every village, the Berbers are Berbers are distinctly a white race, and the majority would, if class and European customs pass unchallenged as Europeans. So once again, it has to be attested that these Berbers identifying as white people are in fact the Berbers, because the white people that are identifying as Berbers are actually called the Amazigh. Okay, very important to understand. They are desert Arabs versus the ancient people identified as the ancient Ethiopians. These were the ancient Libyans. Very important. Dark hair, brown or hazel eyes are the rule. Blue eye blondes are also found. but their frequency has been considerably overstated. The invaders who have most affected the Berber race are what? The Arabs. Once again, Palestinians are Arabs. They are associated with the Turks. Okay, that goes into what we call the Turkish. Okay, or the Turkic. All right, and that goes into history in regards to the invasion of Levant. Okay, the invasion of Levant by Babar. Okay, we're gonna talk about that in my next lesson. The races who have most affected Berbers race are the Arabs, but the two races with a common religion, often a common government with the same tribal grouping, have failed to amalgamate to any great extent. Y'all better listen to me right now. This fact has been emphasized by Dr. R.G. Latham, who writes, all that is not Arabic in the kingdom of Morocco, all that is not Arabic in French province of Algeria, all that is not Arabic in Tunis, Tripoli, invasion is Berber. The explanation lies in the profound distinction of the character, the Arab is a herdsman and a nomad. The Berber is the agriculturist and the townsman. The Arab is built his social structure on the Quran, which inculcates absolutism and autocracy, theocracy. The Berber, despite his nominal Mohammedanism, is a democratic with his Jinnah or Wittemah and his Qanun or unwritten code, the Magna Carta of the individual's liberties as opposed to the community's good. So the Berbers' democratic government was called what? What they call it? Witten. Okay? Or Wittemah. Very, very, very important to understand that. Let's look up Whitney real quick, since you all don't know that. Sorry about that. I knew something was going to happen. Let's see if it came up. All right. I'll look that up because I don't want no problem. All right. Let me come to my closing. All right. What else I want to do? Let's start here. Root of the clan. Everybody needs to get this book. Person you see behind me, King Edgar the Peaceful. I think I'll close on. Root of the clan, but an ancient form of social organization revealed about the future and individual freedoms. I'm by Mark Weiner. Everyone needs to get this book. It'll pop up. Almost any problems. Make sure you go ahead. Close out on this. Kingdom of England. Close out on. Make sure you don't miss a lesson on the ancient Canaanites. Which I proved they are, in fact, the Plantagenets, right? The Kingdom of England was a sovereign state on the island of Great Britain. You hear that? On the island of Great Britain from the 10th century, when it was unified by various Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. All right, Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. That's up. Till May 1707. So prior to that, there were separate kingdoms. Scotland was over there. You know what I'm saying? England was over here, and Ireland, whatever it was. You know what I'm saying? We must understand that. The only reason why I'm saying that because we got laws already in place in regards to the Kingdom of England. If you see the flag, okay, arms and banners of the King of England. The red flag with the red cross, that's St. George's flag, okay? It didn't come around to the 6th century. Prior to that, the only flag they had was the royal banner and the royal arms, going back to the 12th century, okay? That goes back to the founder, Godfrey. So automatically, this is the Plantagenet crown, okay? Very, very, very important. They inherited what was left over from William the Conqueror's invasion, okay, through the Norman conquest. Prior to that, the kings of Wessex had that going all the way back from Edward the Confessor to Alfred the Great, who unified the Anglo-Saxons, which I just said were in fact Berbers, okay? So from the Heptarchy, which were 5 separate kingdoms due to unification, all right, known as the Kingdom of Wessex, these were in fact Anglo-Saxon Berbers all the way up to Edward the Confessor, till William the Conqueror invaded in 1066, which changed it to feudal law. Okay, prior to that, it was just tenure. Okay, on the lowly old land here in North America, not over there what they call UK, all right, because that didn't become the location till 1588 to 1707 under the House of Tudors through Elizabeth I. So from 1066, it led to the transfer of the English capital city, hear that, in Tenure Court, and chief royal residence from the Anglo-Saxon on the Winchester to Westminster and to the city of London, quickly established itself in English largest and principal commercial center. Very, very, very important for you to understand that, all right? Let's go ahead. History of the Kingdom of England from the Norman Conquest to 1066 convented distinguished periods named after the successive ruling dynasties, Normans and Gibeons, where you see the three lions, to the which were founded by the Plantagenet crown under Godfrey the Fifth Caliban Jew, son of Folk, ruler of Jerusalem. From there, you go into the War of the Roses with a conflict between the cadet branches, the Yorks and Lancasters, which brought forth the House of Tudors, which brought forth the House of Stuart, which led to the interregnum, which led to the non-demise of the king in regard to the transmission from one monarch to the next, which led to what you now call the Republic or Commonwealth. All right. This is why the Plantagenet crown under King Henry II's descendants, Henry III, his sons, Henry the Edward I, Edward II, Edward III, passed laws, okay, in regard to who would inherit what we call the promised land, which is not over there and what you think now is called that land now called Israel. Okay, that land is not the Holy Land, nor is it the promised land, because the only thing that's been dealing with that land from this point in time is wars. Okay, and that's a throw off as a lack of your understanding, which I go into in my lesson on the ancient Canaanites. Okay, very, 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 very important. The completion, then you go into Edward the First, all right? Edward the First passed laws to protect those who were the ancient Israel, who were the ancient ones from the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel, okay? Who apparently don't know who they are, okay? Laws already put in place for you to inherit the promised land that's over here, okay? Because if you go to the first crusade and the last crusade, guess who was in the last crusade? This guy right here. It's not, let me see, make sure. Make sure if it's not, it's Edward the Third. No, actually, it's Edward the First. I'm going to my last lesson. That one. I'll blow your mind with that lesson. It's called Lord Edward's Crusade. Lord Edward or Lord Edward Shoshank. All right, you say Edward. Edward the First. There you go, right here. All right. So the last crusade in that land, you call it the Holy Land, called the Kingdom of Israel, which is composed of the Kingdom of Israel and the Kingdom of Judah, which were composed of the ancient lights, apparently has something to do with the Plantagenet crown, because at that time of the Lord Edward's conquest and Lord Edward crusade, it was based upon protecting the land from invasion of what we call Arabs. Okay, very, very, very important. So I'll pull up the date, our calendar, 1066 or 1065 to show you that we were in fact Berbers, because why the English reading our year then come into what we call 1066 with William the Conqueror. Prior to that, like the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica said, we were in fact Berbers. Okay? And our government was called Wittenmont, known as folk right, which the founding fathers have took, and I am going to restore. Okay? Lord Lancelot, you are not the one to do that, nor is King Yahweh. You are not the one to do this. Thank you, Internet, for not shutting down on me. Appreciate it. If you cuss off on me this time, brothers and sisters, I'm going to greet you as I meet you, and that's always in peace and love. And I'll see you on the next lecture dealing with the ancient Canaanites, who are the Plantagenet descendants. Nope, didn't work for me. Don't worry about it. I'm going to get a new computer. So, let me find something. Let's listen to more of the Lord Lancelot. Let's hear him talk a little bit. Let's hear a little bit more before I close out for you.
Children live this law is forever. And we're gonna cover this because this is the authority that we have, and it's the absolute one. So we're gonna cover this based on my book. This book is called "The Crown Is Your Birthright," and it's volume 2. This book allows you to see more details of how things are established, right? Is still in establishment. So you're gonna see what great things awaken. So again, this is based on my journey, my discovery of my family, and again found that there are so much other families that it affects. So like I say, these things were done even before I even knew. So I'm Lancelot. I'm from Middlesex of the Webb and Lawrence family, and the House of Wessex. And that Webb name is derived from a weaver. That's Neef from the first dynasty. And again, we're imperial crown residents of the royal house of Windsor. And it's super important, and of the realm of Mercia. Down here, like you could find your court of arms. So each family member, your court of arms is in the, depends, the abbeys. So you have Westminster Abbey. This is next to Parliament, which is a part of Parliament where they keep all of the family records. The royal one, that's from the olden kingdom. So that's why you could find. So let me show you. So because we're in a like I say a great time. We're in the year of Jubilee, meaning the year of return, where this was declared by Pope Francis, right? And the year of Jubilee, if you're Christian or religious, you should know the year of Jubilee. So this is a royal custom where anyone that has your property, your land, is supposed to return unto you. all contracts are void. That's why again they're trying to take us into another system, the digital system, because their operation as is up. It's no longer. It's in we're in the year of Jubilee, and the Jubilee is going on now. That's why everything you're seeing is based on the year of Jubilee. So just want to get you to this point because we're basing everything on the crown, right? And where is it? Let's go up here. Yeah, and we're basing everything on the crown, and the crown itself is the intelligence of our bloodline. So it's the intelligence of our ancestors, and this is the part like a lot of people are coming from. Again, they just might be coming from word of mouth, but this is a bit different. It's where intelligence is required, and they always knew this, so
But
that's
you're
why
not
they
showing to
don't
have the
make
intelligence if you don't understand the purpose and intent of the crown. That's not the intelligence that's needed in regard to the understanding of the purpose and intent of the crown.
because read they messed up the type of information that we're supposed to be receiving. They make it focused on things that are entertaining instead of that things that are educational, right? So there we go. So you have the Royal House of Windsor. Hope everyone can see, right? You have the Royal House of Windsor, and just to go back to this law, I'm gonna so from the petition, just to make sure, and it says families of those who are born in Part B and C. It's an actual law. So legislation.gov.uk is delivered by the National Archive. So it's the national, as you see, the highest authority you can get around the world, National Archive. So it has everything that's accurate. So this you could find. So every governor, every ambassador from different countries, they come to cross-reference and to apply the laws to their constitution. So that's why they could continue working. Just like even for the Americans, they come, they get their research bodies to study the laws, then they created a code, right? So they codify the English law. That's all you see in America, codified English law. And you can see this is the same law that I just mentioned, all right? Okay, so remember, this is what we're going to be covering. We're going to be covering the King's Children, the law of the Crown of
Here,
England,
right here in New
right?
Jersey, it's
Same
not there.
King's Children.
That's
Again,
not the English crown.
inheritance, all right? Because we're not talking about reparation, we're not talking about nothing else but inheritance. Inheritance is different. It's inheritance is through blood, law, genius, the highest intelligence, so that your inheritance can be
Let's see
secured,
if
even
that's the legislation or is this the legislation. Let's see. Where's the legislation at to support what you're saying? If you allow me. Here's our statutes right here. Alienation of freehold, Queen and Pintoris. That was passed by Edward the First, right there. That's one. Here's another one, passed by the same king. In New Jersey legislation, right here, Statute of Intel, right there. Statute of Intel by Edward the First. Okay. We also know that we have the right of reversionary interest and as a state because of this statute right here. Okay. So we ain't asking for nothing. We have the right to take it. They changed it from Intel to fee simple to common recovery, which is a unlawful process from changing fee Intel and to fee simple. Right here. This is 2025, brothers and sisters. And I close out on this. From after July 12th, 1795, no fine or common recovery that has been or should be entered, may have or suffer in any court or record of the state should operate or be construed to be conveyance of assurance of a real estate or in any way bar the issue of entail or the reversion or remanagement of their lawful claim to entry and any usage custom to the contrary is what everyone say is not withstanding. Okay? What is common recovery? Let's look up that real quick. I don't think it's going to give it to me, but let's try. Okay. I'll close on this. Common recovery. Listen, now you just saw this. A common recovery was a legal proceeding in England that enabled lawyers to convert an entail estate, a form of land ownership, also called fetail, into absolute ownership. Be simple. This was accomplished through the use of series of collusive legal procedures, some parts of which fictional and others unenforceable and therefore new. Hear that word? Fictional. Practice, it had to be create a legal fiction. All right. Background. Entails were originally designed to keep ownership of land within a family. Thanks to the fact of statute de indulgence condition of us, the intent of the entail could not be broken. This is New Jersey. Whether you find this in the UK, this is New Jersey statute. But we see that New Jersey corporate body that exists now abolished the indulgence condition of us. Why? Because it's not their corporate powers. It didn't abolish it. It just made it silent and inapplicable as a result of that gap in the law, which legal fiction created a bridge to fill that gap in the law without breaking the letter of the law. That meant that the land and fee could not simply be sold, transferred, or mortgaged, as whatever the current owner did with it, its ownership would automatically pass on the death to their specified by the Intel through operational law. While Intel performed a valuable function in the 13th century when the Jones condition was enacted, by the 15th century, the court had extended their scope so that they were now perpetual. Socioeconomic conditions meant that landowners were more concerned with being able to freely sell, convey, or mortgage their land. And the second half of the 15th century, common recovery was divided a way to circumvent what they donuts condition their butts. Very, 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 very important. So I got the keys, my brothers and sisters, to the return of your lawful estates. Why? Because according to New Jersey, under their constitution, they took it. Fee simple. Let's see it for ourselves. Legislative, Article 4, Section 6, Paragraph 3. Like, share, donate, free and common sockets to the $ Clifford Jefferson L. 33 Church of England. If you can, like, share, subscribe. All right, very important. Section 6. This is the legislative branch. Okay. Article 4, Section 6. It says any agency, political subdivision of the state or agency or political subdivision thereof, which may be empowered to take otherwise acquire private property for any public highway, parkway, airport, place, improvement, or use, may authorize by law to take otherwise acquire what? Fee simple absolute. That's through common recovery. All right. How they did it was right here. Article 1. Privilege and Immunities Clause. Let's look at it. Rights and privileges. Government's not even in place now. You go right here. Private property should not be taken for public use without just compensation. Individuals or private property should not be authorized to take private property for public use without just compensation first made to the owners. So that's you, brothers and sisters, the people, okay? The people. But yet, because you don't know your government, they have now input in and inserted a clause without the government even being informed yet to take their property under Article 4, Section 6, Paragraph 3. Okay, without the legal continuity to do so under Paragraph 4, because there's no Paragraph 4 under Article 4, Section 6, Paragraph 4. Let's see. Article 4. Let's see if we got a Section 3, but no Section 4. Section 6, we got Paragraph 3, but where's 4? 4 deals with the legal continuity of government under temporary public offices when enemy attack. Ain't no enemy attack. So that's why it's not there. So it would justify that there's a legal, illegitimate presumption of legitimacy of the existence of the state government. Why? Because the only reason why they exist is to take what? Fee simple absolute, which they instituted in Article 20 of Article 1, Privilege and Immunity Clause of a citizen. Why? Because they changed the law of sin. Right here. Article 11, Article 4, Section 7 of Paragraph 9, Article 1 and 2, which I'll close. It says here, the legislature does not pass any private, special, or local law authorizing the sale or any land belonging to or hold in part of a minor or minors or other person which may at the time be under legal disability or act for themselves. Or 2, changing the law of descent. Because you don't know your descent, this is how they took in your property. With that, you need to understand how important this lesson is in regards to the return of your inheritance from the king. Okay? The king. All right? I'll go into that more on the lesson I'm about to do either tonight or tomorrow. Probably more leaning towards tomorrow. Okay? But you do not want to miss this lesson. Hebrew Israelites, Moors, Jews, wannabes, you do not want to miss that lesson. Okay? So with that, I'm going to greet you as I always have greeted you, and that's in the peace of our ancestors. King Edgar the Peaceful.